She was supposed to die. The doctor said so. And then she opened her eyes and said something that made everyone in that room go completely silent. This is the story of Laura Van Wren, a normal 16-year-old girl who went on a school field trip one morning and never really came back the same. What happened to her and what she said when she finally woke up is something that still gives people chills to this day. Stay with me, because this story gets deeper than you think. Laura grew up in a quiet town with her parents and 2 younger siblings. By every measure, she was a regular teenager. She liked music, hated early mornings, and was the kind of girl who remembered everyone's birthday. Her teachers liked her. Her classmates liked her. There was nothing about Laura that would make you think her life was about to be turned completely upside down. It was a Thursday in early spring when her school organized a field trip. Nothing fancy, just a bus ride to a nature reserve about 2 hours away. Laura sat near the window, earphones in, watching the highway blur past. Her best friend Maya sat next to her, arguing about which snacks to eat first. It was supposed to be a completely forgettable day. It wasn't. About 40 minutes into the drive, the bus driver lost control on a wet stretch of road. The bus skidded, hit the guardrail, and rolled. Just like that, in less than 4 seconds. Everything changed. Students were screaming. Windows shattered. When it finally stopped moving, the bus was on its side in a ditch. Most kids walked away with cuts and bruises. A few had broken bones. But Laura had hit her head so hard against the window frame that by the time the ambulance arrived, she wasn't responding to anything. No movement, no reaction to light. Her brain had swelled from the impact, and the doctors had to put her into a medically induced coma to try to save her life. Her parents drove to the hospital in under 20 minutes. Her mother couldn't even speak when she saw her daughter lying there with tubes coming out of her and machines, beeping around her like some kind of nightmare she couldn't wake up from. The doctors were honest, and honestly, that made it worse. They said the next 72 hours were critical. They said brain swelling at this level could cause permanent damage. They said things like, "We'll do everything we can," which every family knows is doctor language for "we don't know." Days passed, then a week, then 2. Laura didn't wake up. Her family took shifts at the hospital. Her dad would sit by her bed at night and just talk to her. About nothing, really. About the weather. About what her brother said at dinner. About the garden that needed watering. Doctors say that hearing familiar voices can help coma patients, and he wasn't taking any chances. Her mom brought in a small speaker and played Laura's favorite songs on low volume. The nurses never said anything about it. Maybe they understood. 2.5 weeks in, something happened that nobody had prepared for. Laura's brain scans, which had been showing slow, almost invisible improvement, suddenly changed. The swelling was going down faster than expected. Her brain activity increased. The doctors were cautiously hopeful, but they kept warning the family not to get too excited too soon. But on day 19, Laura's fingers moved. Just slightly, just once. But her mother was in the room, and she saw it, and she immediately called for the nurse. By the next morning, Laura was trying to open her eyes. It took a few hours. Her eyelids flickered. Then, slowly, like something out of a movie, they opened. The room was bright. Laura squinted. She looked confused, the way anyone would look if they woke up in a hospital after being unconscious for almost 3 weeks. A nurse leaned in and said her name. Laura looked at her, then around the room, and then her lips started moving. Everyone leaned in closer. She said a name. Not her mom's name, not her dad's, not Maya's. She whispered the name Daniel. The room went quiet. Her parents looked at each other. They didn't know anyone named Daniel. None of Laura's close friends were named Daniel. Her brother wasn't named Daniel. Her dad quietly asked her, "Laura, who is Daniel?" And she just closed her eyes again and drifted back to sleep. Over the next few days, as Laura slowly became more alert and more able to speak in full sentences, her family kept gently asking about Daniel. At first, Laura couldn't explain it. She said it felt like a memory, but also like a dream, the way you sometimes wake up feeling a strong emotion from something you can't quite remember. But then, piece by piece, it started coming back to her. While she was in the coma, Laura says she experienced something. She's always been careful about how she describes it. She doesn't call it a miracle. She doesn't call it a hallucination. She just says it felt completely real. She was somewhere quiet, she says, peaceful. And there was a boy there, a boy named Daniel. He didn't say much, but he sat with her, and he made her feel safe. And at some point he told her it wasn't her time yet. Now, here's where things get strange. A few weeks after Laura was discharged, her grandmother, her dad's mother, who lived in another city, came to visit. She hadn't been there during the hospital stay. She walked in, hugged Laura, and at some point during the visit, Laura mentioned the name Daniel, just casually, while telling the story of what she remembered. Her grandmother froze. She asked Laura to say the name again. Laura repeated it. Daniel. Her grandmother sat down slowly, and then she told them something that nobody in the immediate family had known. Laura's grandfather, who had died years before. Laura was born, had a younger brother. He had died as a child in an accident, a very long time ago. His name was Daniel. Laura had never been told about him. There were no photos of him in the house. His name had never come up in family conversation. Not because it was a secret, but simply because it was a grief so old that it had faded into the background of family history, the way old losses sometimes do. When her grandmother described what Daniel looked like as a child, his dark hair, the way he smiled, Laura started crying. She said that sounded right. She couldn't explain it. Nobody could. Now, doctors have explanations for what happens in the brain during a coma. They'll tell you about REM-like activity, about memory consolidation, about how the brain sometimes creates vivid experiences when it's under extreme stress. And those explanations are real. They're backed by science. A 2014 study published in the journal Resuscitation looked at over 2,000 cardiac arrest survivors and found that nearly 40% reported some kind of awareness during the time when they were clinically unconscious. 40%. That's not a small number. But here's what science cannot fully explain. How a girl who had never heard a name, never seen a photo, and had no conscious knowledge of a person who died decades before she was born, woke up whispering that exact name. Was it a coincidence? Maybe. The human brain is stranger and more powerful than we give it credit for. Maybe somewhere deep in a childhood conversation, the name had slipped through without her remembering. Maybe the mind pieces things together in ways we don't understand yet. Or maybe, just maybe, there are things that happen at the edge of life that we don't have the right words for yet. Laura is doing well today. She finished school, she's studying psychology, which honestly makes perfect sense. She says the experience changed the way she looks at everything. Not in a dramatic way, but in a quiet way. She doesn't take ordinary days for granted. She says she feels like she was handed something back, and she tries not to waste it. She still doesn't have a full explanation for Daniel. She's made peace with that. Some things, she says, aren't meant to be solved. They're just meant to be carried. And maybe that's the most honest thing any of us can say about the parts of life that go beyond what we can see and measure and explain. If this story gave you chills, the video playing right now will do exactly the same thing. Hit it.